Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Veterans Today Radio News Reports. I'm your host, Stu Webb. It's Monday, February the 16th, 2015. My three special guests this evening, Gordon Duff will be on the first hour, Jim Dean, and Preston James. Dr. Preston James will be on the second hour. And with that said, I'm going to get right to my guest, Gordon Duff. How are you this evening, sir? Gordon, are you there? Did I lose Gordon?
I had my mic muted.
Oh, great. Okay, that works. How are you this evening?
Yeah, I do that so you can't hear the dog barking in the background. Doing okay. A lot of news stories. You're going to have probably a big day with Jim Dean. We've been busy in Ukraine with the semi-ceasefire. Apparently and Jim will get into this, but I don't know. I depend on our listening audience here is generally one that's better than informed, but the U.S. is officially on the side of the bad guys again in another war, and if that's a surprise to any of you, but the Minsk peace accords left a cauldron or a bulge or whatever within the rebel, who are really not the rebels. Actually, the rebels are the ones that took over the country in the coup. It's just too complicated to deal with anyway. But in cutting the deal in Minsk, we'll call it the neo-fascist government in Ukraine, forgot that they had 8,000 men trapped. And so as we speak, those 8,000 men are being swept up, surrendering in bunches right now, and then the government in Kiev is, of course, trying to pretend they're not there at all. It doesn't matter anyway. They're pretty much all criminals in Kiev, and if 8,000 people who were duped into fighting for a Nazi government are killed or caught or whatever, and I don't think the guys in the cauldron, or as it would be the breakaway republics, I really don't think they're going to kill anybody unnecessarily. It hasn't been their tradition. But this is a nasty war, and one that Americans are going to need to understand, and one where the American people are lied to absolutely continually. Stu, have you been keeping track of what we've been doing on VT this week? And no is also an answer, by the way.
To some degree I have, Gordon, and some degree I have not. And I've got a line here. Guess who's on the line with me?
Well,
Mike Harris. Mike, you still there?
Oh no, it's Mike Harris. Mike, are you there?
He's got to get back on the road, he said. Well, Mike, I'll call you later.
Mike was taking his kid back to, and I don't say where anyone is to and from anymore, but this is one of those divorce situations, and this is a dad with a kid in the car today. Something I think pretty much all of us know pretty well, including just about everybody out there listening, for that matter. If any of you haven't been through that situation, hey, let me know. You can't be real.
But to answer your question, no, Gordon, yes and no. I've been on VT a little bit this week, but I've had some incredible evidence, and I'm accumulating for certain people, and oh, you'll see.
Well,
you'll understand.
For those who haven't been to veteranstoday.com, and I still can't navigate the way around the new site here. And it's not that new anymore. It's a couple months old, and I get lost pretty quickly. Under War Zone, which is our first moving tab, the truce holding with France and Germany, Kiev and the rebels. The story on Obama. Now this is one of the unusual stories we've had come up, and something I probably ought to take a moment to talk about. Around a week ago, Pravda put an article out in Russian only, let nobody know it was out, by the way, stating that, and it's a very short article, 355 words, and not even in good Russian, by the way, saying that Putin was planning on releasing evidence that the U.S. was complicit, the U.S. government was complicit in 9/11, beginning with satellite evidence. And I will mention that one of our editors, in this case, Jeff Smith, as a news bureau chief in Washington, after he left the IAEA as a nuclear inspector, did meet with Russian intelligence and reviewed their 9/11 evidence based on his previous visits to Moscow while working as a nuclear inspector for the United Nations. And the evidence he had seen there indicated not only that more than one nuclear weapon was used on the World Trade Center, but there is evidence of the weapon being moved within New York into New York. And the Russian satellites detect any movement of nuclear weapons in the U.S. as we do elsewhere in the world. You can not only from satellite identify where nuclear weapons are, but considerable amount about their nature and where they originated. There's a signature that can be picked up from a satellite, and not just an explosion. I mean, moving one. They can be shielded under a certain amount of water, other things like this, and that's an issue that'll come up. Now, the article didn't get any play. It was just left there for a reason. You know, just they could have moved it to Russia Today or put it out on TASS, which is their English language site. They didn't do that. They left it unplugged up. Then they emailed it to me, with a suggestion. I translated and put it up. And I ran it through Google. And then I had undergrad Russian at Michigan State, heaven forbid, and I got it Google was horrible, but I got it into something closer to English. And it wasn't the most literate article. And it predicted that once the people of the U.S. learned what happened, we were all going to go out into the street and riot, against the government. Not many of us who really live there took that part seriously. But the real question is why, and this is very important, why this article was put out. First of all, it's an indication that the Russians really do have this information. We have verified that. We had verified this 2 years ago. We knew they had this. Since we've already published worse than that. So we also know that they have what we have because the Russians have the evidence that DT has because we got much of it from them, not all of it. The 9/11 2003 report came, from what we understand, through Edward Snowden. They didn't use his name, but it couldn't have come from anywhere else. But after this, we did an independent investigation, and we had considerable help from current and former employees of the Department of Energy and investigators that were able to speak somewhat. Now, one of my personal complaints here is that there are many, many people with evidence of crimes the U.S. has been involved in. And, I will start, with the 2000 coup d'etat, threats against the Gore family. Certainly, those complicit, and this is when we went through the documentation on the 2003 report. The names that were included as involved in the planning of 9/11. And here's for instance, the Bronfman family. This is a Canadian family involved in the liquor business. Now, this is the family, however, the Bronfman family, from what we have been able to ascertain, runs a public relations and something a little more aggressive than that, a psychological warfare and borderline criminal organization in the U.S. in support. It's the armed muscle behind AIPAC, the ADL, JDL, those groups. The Bronfman mob is doing this. And key to the Bronfman...
If I just touch base and drop a hint to you here on something on Bronfman, the Seeger and Southern family, the son actually is an employee of a Central Intelligence Agency, Edgar Bronfman's son, Gordon. You might want to check that out.
Edgar was listed as being one of the planners of 9/11, and then checking on their network of activities inside the U.S., we find that they run what's called InfoWars here. kind of a sleazy fly-by-night tabloid thing that goes on the internet, and they do radio and some kind of private TV stuff with that guy that looks like Charles Lawton. What's his name now?
Alexa Jonestein, isn't it?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
We've been able to track his organization. And one of the things that came up this last week, apparently, is that there had been communication between the Israeli intelligence services, Bronfman, and the InfoWars group to try to attack us and be in person, as though I were actually Vladimir Putin. Of course, I'm considerably better looking than he is, but as if I had actually written this document. Now, I'll give you some background on what really happened here after this document was. Now, there was never any intention on the part of the Russian government, I don't think, to release this. But we have found that the Russian government released documentation on 9/11. This is a big deal for people who, oh, heaven forbid, I don't even know how we want to deal with this. We know that President Obama knows now for the first time. Apparently, he doesn't own a computer and only must watch Fox News. You know, I don't know here. But that for the first time in all these years, Obama has finally been told that the 9/11 report from 2005 was a phony, and that the criminals whose place he took were actually responsible. Now, more or less believing that that's the first time he heard this, I guess I'm forced to assume that he's one of the dumbest people on God's earth, other than the fact that I guess, George W. Bush was around there. But part of what we understand to have been the agreement on the part of the Russians to not release this publicly and to only release this through the White House is that the Obama administration was obligated to settle a lawsuit based on the 1987 report on Israel's nuclear weapons development. Are you familiar with that?
I am familiar with their development, yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen on this.
Go ahead and run with it. If you can here, go ahead and run with that.
Well, that was over there where they blew themselves up, or someone blew themselves up, as I recall. And, of course, we have all the nukes. What they've been doing, stealing from Pantex, all the decommissioned nukes.
This is not the one here.
Okay.
All right. The U.S. government in 1987 did an assessment of NATO and Israel, an official assessment of the capabilities of those countries and their technology, including their nuclear weapons technology. The report cited these things about Israel in particular. This is the official U.S. government report, that Israel had developed the atomic bomb with U.S. help, but moreover, more recently, as of 1987, the U.S. has claimed officially, and this is one of the Helen Thomas things. Helen Thomas, in her presidential press conferences, would always ask the president if they knew of a Middle Eastern nation that had nuclear weapons, and everybody would hem and haw because it could never be admitted that Israel had nuclear weapons. Well, in 1987, the U.S. officially established that Israel had a nuclear arsenal. Now, there are problems related to this, and let me go into, I believe I have an article on this myself, and I'll make reference to this if I can get into my own stuff here on Veterans Today. I'd almost recommend, folks, if you've got a computer, nobody uses computers anymore. Everybody works with their phones. It drives me crazy here. And I will head down through articles here. And this is Obama leaks Israel nuclear violation doc before Bibi visit. We have been told that Obama settled the Freedom of Information lawsuit and released this report that trashes Israel after being blackmailed by Vladimir Putin. This is, and this would be the result of that threat that Putin issued to release the 9/11 reports. And of course, Obama should realize that I'm not sure what percentage of people out there are aware that the neocons, aided by Israeli and Saudi intelligence, are responsible for 9/11. But if we could have everybody who knows this, raise your right hand, okay? Unless you're driving, okay? And I hope you're wireless. And everybody who doesn't know, raise their left hand. I can't see from where I am. Stu, can you see the people with their hands up where you are?
I'll tell you, I think that probably 50% of America has a...
Well, as the case is here, now this is what comes of this. We now have officially released to the public documentation that states, without any question, that the U.S. giving foreign aid to Israel is illegal. And that would be in accordance with the Symington Agreement to the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961 that prohibits U.S. foreign aid to any country found trafficking in nuclear enrichment equipment or technology outside of international safeguards, and the Glenn Amendment in 1977 that calls for an end to foreign aid to countries that import nuclear reprocessing technology.
Does this mean that the Balpagoons like John Hagee and others are in violation of those laws for sending money to a terrorist state, the big Satan known as Israel?
It essentially means this exactly. And that the U.S. is in violation too as a government. Now, one of the other issues, now let's say we all sit in front of our computers right now, and let's type in the words, and we're doing this together, by the way, foreign, that's F-O-R-E-I-G-N, for the challenged, I will say that I'm one of them, print, and with an N, and Constitution. Okay, type that in and let's see what comes up. And, let's see. Oath of Allegiance to the United States. Okay, this is first base of the citizenship oath. I hereby declare on oath that I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, punctuation, comma, potentate, punctuation, comma, state. That's when you write down, to any foreign state or sovereignty of whom or which I have heretofore been subject or citizen, and that I'll support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I'll bear true faith and allegiance to the same. Now, what did we find here about dual citizens or people that serve in the IDF? This is right out of our citizenship oath, and this is the allegiance to the Constitution of the United States under the Administrative Procedures Act, which includes a promise to serve in the United States, by the way, which is obligated by law when the draft is in force anyway. And these are part of the 5 principles of the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1953, which is a direct expression of language and meaning within the Constitution and the supporting documentation. What this would state is that any American who serves a foreign state whatsoever, as an attorney, as an agent, as an advertising executive, PJ Media, for instance, that's the Israel's voice in the United States. InfoWars, Israel's other voice in the United States. Fox News, another voice. CNN, another voice. The Washington Post, very much another voice. Newsweek, the Daily Beast. Huffington Post, another voice. all voices of the state of Israel. And then more innocently, because you can't say that every person is properly informed or suffers from a case of intent to commit treason, but there are enough who have. So anyone who is served in the IDF or has Israeli citizenship should lose their citizenship. Now, this is where we have that issue of amnesty come in. Now, Stu, can you let people know what the amnesty question is about?
Not totally. I'm not sure where you're going with this, but I wouldn't say that the dual citizenship thing, we could, let's see, who could we arrest? Rahm Emanuel, we could arrest him. Then the no ones you just named. But go ahead with the amnesty part.
I have an ex-girlfriend who served in the IDF. She's now a dentist. Perfectly nice person, and her parents actually were at Auschwitz, and then nothing wrong with any of those people. And, she moved back to Israel and served in the IDF during the 1973 war, I know more than a few people who have served in the IDF. Of those, and this is John Schussler, known as Roy Tog, by the way, who was one of our columnists and for a number of years, and who has been living in Bolivia as a semi-political prisoner. They had seized his passport. That John has disappeared and has been missing for a couple of months now. And Eileen Fleming, another writer and collaborationist in the DT group, believes that Roy Tog, or John, is dead, and he would have been murdered by individuals with the Bolivian government at the orders of Israel. And we hope he is okay. We believe he is not. And that will be... we lose a lot of people at DT for, of course, some of us are real old, play with guns too much and ride fast motorcycles. So, that all comes with it. But we lose a lot of people at DT, and certainly more than anywhere else. Now, the issue with, and this is just a minor issue, I believe these people should have their citizenship taken, but I also believe they deserve, especially if born in the United States, they deserve a path to citizenship. I've got people I deal with like Ken O'Keefe, renounced his citizenship, and Ken's a Marine veteran, combat veteran, definitely a combat veteran. Very angry guy, very angry at the U.S., and a lot of people are out there. And Ken had renounced his citizenship. I remember he was in Gaza a couple of years ago. He's got an Irish passport that had been taken, and I had called their equivalent of the State Department, and it become, I can be really difficult, but the Irish, after being apprised of the situation and the concern we had as the press, and not so much as being people who'd go and beat all of them up. You don't want to go to Ireland and beat people up. They're real good at that themselves. But as the press, and they made an effort and got him out of Gaza, picked him up, got him into Egypt, and got him back to Ireland. And we appreciate them doing that. And that was more than a bit ago, and Ken and I sitting on Skype or the phone night after night, and me sitting on hold with the government explaining that I'm his editor and that he's stuck there and it's time to get him out of there because his life was in danger, which it very much was. And these are the kind of daily things we deal with here for my own stuff. And I really, on the part of all of you, it's not good or healthy, and we have to come back to this. It's not good or healthy for any of you to eat too much, and they'll call it fear porn. And this one may be picking on Alex Jones, although he makes it all up. I was picking on him in an article a while ago. I'm becoming less good-natured about him because as the Netanyahu visit comes forward, and I believe Netanyahu is representing a serious threat against American sovereignty. He and his gangster friends and Shelley Adelson and their 5 crooks in the Supreme Court. They're a very serious threat to the U.S. And with the kind of police state that we have built, even under Obama, I can't stress that anyone go out and oppose the government in any armed way. But I do ask Americans now increasingly to organize, speak with others, be flexible, and I have some of this internally between Stu and Glenn here and others, because we all have strong opinions, and the more we know, the more self-righteous we all get. And but you're out there. Too many of the people you will know will be so stupid they hardly qualify as a houseplant. But find the people you can, find a common ground with them. And we have key issues in this country. That one of them is continuity of command. There are threats against the U.S. government. There are serious internal threats by groups within the military, intelligence, and primarily organized crime. And as you out there know, it won't be the first time we've lost our government to organized crime. We did certainly in 1963. We did in 1980. And if you don't think Iran-Contra and the October surprise was organized crime, and that brought us Mr. Reagan, this is how we got Lyndon Johnson. It's how we got Ronald Reagan. It's how we got George W. Bush. And each one of those presidencies was noted by restructuring of the U.S. economy, to punish workers in this country, by a loss of civil rights, by certainly increasing inequity in our and iniquity, by the way, in our tax base. Now, we've had this happen. We've had this happen already, and lightning has struck over and over. And when there is a threat of continuity of command, and we allowed in 2000 the U.S. Supreme Court to step in the middle of an election and seize control of the U.S. government, and that should never have been allowed. If we knew today what if we knew then what we knew today. Is that how you do it? Yeah. If we knew then what we knew today, that 9/11 would be coming, that 2 wars would be coming, that we would turn Afghanistan into a drug paradise to poison the children of the United States, if we knew we were going to get homeland security, if we knew every few weeks we were going to have intelligence agencies bring in a patsy and shoot up a school or playground or shopping center or military base or it never stops. If we knew this was going to happen, well, we know now. We don't have any excuse. We know now. None of us doubt what happened in 1963. This is organized crime. It's what these guys are all about. Netanyahu is coming to this country it's a meeting of the godfathers of organized crime, and he is nothing but a godfather of organized crime. And officially, he's under investigation for war crimes by the International Criminal Court at The Hague, the ICC, and he should not be allowed into the United States. No one under investigation by the ICC is allowed to travel in the U.S. That is an automatic red list with Interpol. If he is not on a red list, I would be very surprised, because he qualifies. And that, puts you on a ban list from entering into the United States.
You know that John Hagee and his Christian groups that support those chosen people in Israel, because they're the chosen people, and that's the Holy Land. You know that they're saying anybody that boycotts his speech, those Congress and Senate that don't want to be there while the crime dawns there, that he's going to take action against all those, a threatening action to help remove them in the next election.
Well, you know, if that action is political, you know, let the chips fall where they may, Mr. Hagee. But if there's a God, I don't believe there's a God. If there is a God, and you're still alive right now, well, maybe it's proof there isn't a God, and you've been conning people all along. I couldn't imagine a God that would leave John Hagee alive. I can't do it. Or any of the rest of it. Of course, hey, you know, it's just me. You know, I'm a doubter. You know,
you just can't make this stuff up, Gordon.
Yeah,
you just can't.
The things that are important here, in particular, for people out there, keep yourself informed. Learn the difference between the people who tell you what you want to be told and people who tell you the truth. People who are telling you attractive things that have no basis. And there'll be a very small difference. You know, here's what I suggest. Go to InfoWars. Look at InfoWars. Look at Veterans Today. We'll have a lot of similar sounding things. Now, I won't be selling any foreign cancer cure, phony cancer cures. I won't be peddling water purification equipment. Although some of them, you know, frankly, I think people should use.
By the way, they don't take everything out of the water. If you want the one that's called Zero, and you can buy it at Target for $35, folks, instead of spending $300 or $400 for a filter system. It takes chlorine out of the water.
Well, it's important that you learn that the people who sound like they're saying, and the kind of people, and it's not just Alex Jones. And when I look at Hagee or Jones or Chuck Norris or Hannity or Bill O'Reilly, or a good part of our government, and I look at these people and I look what they think and what they do, I've talked to a lot of them. If you guys don't get the chance to do what I do, and I'm an arrogant shit, I'll let you know this. These guys are dumb as snakes. And I'll tell you this over and over again, that any of you out there, if you were to sit down in a backroom committee in Washington, you would be the brightest bulb in the room. These are some dumb, dumb people. The people who go into our government are, as human beings, they are utter and absolute failures who trade. Well, what do they have to trade is the point, maybe. But you can't live in that environment until you've given up things that should drive any normal person to suicide. Now, any member of Congress that has gone along with what we've seen over the past 20 years should voluntarily put their head into a leaf chipper. And if you want to see what that's like, by the way, the movie Fargo has a scene like that. I don't know if you can pull that up on YouTube or not, but it's what I would suggest for them. It's a way of making atonement, a way of making peace. These are people who are genuinely destructive, who are evil. We go back to the stuff here with Stu, and Stu, from time to time, pretty much every day actually, we talk about Luciferianism, Satanism, ancient religions, and what we have a series of cults they're really organized crime, and what their lives are based on, as with the serial killers that you see on the movie, the TV show Criminal Minds. Their primary purpose in life is between weird religion, and we're talking satanic, demonic beliefs, the drugs they take, and the genuine evil that we're saying sexually abusing and murdering children, most of them have that their entire life is based on the kind of orgasms that one would get from doing everything. It's like the fantasies of cheerleaders and running off with, but multiplied 1,000 times over. But they think with their little tiny brains, and they have absolutely no common sense at all. There are very few people in our government that, during their younger, healthier years, were able to, let's say, run around with cute girls. And by the way, John McCain was an actual ladies' man, heaven forbid. Popular with the ladies, strong personality. He didn't go totally, he was always an idiot, but he was attractive, forceful, funny even. All the young guys like George W. Bush, they thought he was sarcastic and funny. And, the young men that he hung out with felt very, and that's fine, and we have a large population of gay Americans. A lot of them are listening right now, and what people do and is fine. And that he wasn't able to come clean about that. And I don't put his sexual preference as a contributing factor to the horrible things he had done. I don't see that related at all. Bedwetting or whatever, these are all things that could be anybody. If we can find fault with everyone for everything we want to. We've got people who do bad things, people who are stupid, people who just, it's one thing being stupid, it's another thing doing things to hurt people. And we have a government full of people who are oblivious to hurting people. And we have people, well, I'd like to say we have people who have a conscience there. And I just don't see them. I'm not seeing them at all. I don't recognize it. I don't recognize anyone standing up and saying anything that any of us are hearing that makes us believe in them. There's no leadership whatsoever. When we know that everything we're hearing is a lie, when we know that even the alternative news is largely just a form of deception to give us harmless and meaningless things to worry about. This is it's a serious situation. How do we survive this? This is kind of a point here. We're looking at the political situation now. I think if Mike Harris is listening, fine. Mike loves riding me like a. We won't even say all of the analogies here are just wrong for radio. The FCC would come right down on that one. But we have all of us here looking for ways to express ourselves politically. We're looking for ways to make our lives feel meaningful. We're making us feel like we're doing something to leave a better world for our kids. A lot of us have an ethereal idea that there is such a thing as the United States, that there's an obligation because it has some sort of meaning to make it something better than it had been. Those ideas, technically, when people outside the U.S. hear us talking like this, by the way, they all think we're crazy, just so you know this. But that's how we were all raised, that the U.S. is the land of the free, the home of the brave. And every time we go to war, it's on the wrong side. Every time we do something wrong. Now, it's not that we don't save people in hurricanes and earthquakes, and we think we're fighting to save people from slavery or from oppression, and it's never that way. Not anymore. We're pretty much hoodwinked. Now, the question is whether we can save the political system, whether we can participate within the political system. And that means, are there people within the system that move money around? And there's an awful lot of money moving around. There are billions moving around. Do any of these people have the values and I don't know who else they can listen to. I'm all there is. I don't like being all there is. There are more of us here. We're going to have Jim Dean, Preston James. We'll have Lee Wanta on again. I tried to call Lee today, and he was not in, so Lee, give me a call. But there isn't so big a group as there could be offering leadership. And I am not comfortable doing it. You know, given my brothers, you know, I play with the cats. I work as a defense consultant. That is very stressful and not so easy. And for being who I am, it's hard enough. I help run Veterans Today with a crew of some outstanding people. Stu's part of that crew, Jim Dean. You guys know who they are. These are the best people I've ever worked with. We're a family. But we all recognize we have something wrong. That's something wrong when it's expressed politically through a dialectic of left and right. This is where we start crashing the boat on the rocks. We have an enemy. We have an enemy in the media. We have an enemy in our own government. We have an enemy in a police state that we've built. We have an enemy in an economy that enslaves all of us with debt. We live at, you know, unless you're really good at stealing money or even making it and working, I'm not too bad at that. But the vast majority of people here are not living anything like they could have been. You know, since the mid-1970s, you know, those of us who've been around that long, it has been a luck of the draw, whether you would be living in the big house with the cars and the plane and the pool and the vacations to Fiji, or whether you'd barely be getting around, whether you'd be hoping you could get shoes and a coat for your kids. Stu, you talk for a bit. I'm going to cough for a minute.
Well, we have a question here, Gordon. In the chat room, someone just sent me a message. This question for Gordon: what really is going on with the fighting and potential wars? Who is behind it, etc., with Ukraine, Russia, and Eastern Europe, Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary?
Well, the U.S. has totally militarized the area around the Black Sea and the Balkans, starting with Camp Bondsteel, but we have bases in Romania, Bulgaria. We tried to seize Crimea and take the Russian military base at Sevastopol. During the supposed phony war on terror, we opened secret prisons through Poland. We have organized Poland, Romania, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan. We built a network surrounding Russia, and this is drug transit centers, beginning from Afghanistan, moving through Turkey, Cyprus to Malta, and into Brussels and the U.S. We've destabilized nation after nation. We've economically destroyed Pakistan. We've destroyed Afghanistan, a very wealthy nation. We've certainly helped poison much of the region. We've allowed crooked oil companies to take over everything but Iran, and Iran is being squeezed. This is very much organized crime. Organized crime, let's describe it. John F. Kennedy was right when he said that secret organizations, secret cults, secret societies were ruling the West to a large extent. And they form a network of individuals, corporations, banks. They work with the Freemasons, the Vatican, certainly the modern day elders of Zion, and this is where we are different than others because we include them as one in a group and not as the group alone. And this is where I believe that the people who can be called anti-Zionists, since there aren't very many Jewish Semites. There are some, but there are also purple stars, but, and probably a lot of them, but they don't have Jewish Semites, and we had proven that early on, and that gets discussed enough. But there is no simple way out. Governments do not exist as we know this. There's a film that discusses this, and if anything, get a chance, see it, it's one that I enjoy because it's upbeat in a way. But Gross Point Blank, lateralism, it discusses that the fact that there are no governments, that presidents are nothing but middle management, that Netanyahu is a much more powerful individual within organized crime than George W. Bush was. We're seeing it today. That Tony Blair is a powerful leader of world organized crime. Edgar Bronfman is a leader in organized crime. Rudy Giuliani is a leader in organized crime around the world. He's a very powerful man. Cameron, Prime Minister of Great Britain, he's nothing. Merkel in Germany is a big deal. These are important people. De Klerk, important people. The leaders of organized crime are sometimes world leaders. Some of them are. Sheldon Adelson is spending the money. Is he a powerful leader? Shelley is a gambling boss, a dupe. A monster? Yes, he's a monster. He didn't intend to be. But he's a man filled with hate, somebody that's doing what they can to destroy. Someone set on destroying the United States. Someone set on destroying children of this country. Someone set on bringing this country down. He lives for nothing else and is spending billions bribing our government to destroy it. But organized crime is running all of this. And if you're watching the Ukraine, if you're watching the wars, certainly ISIS, if you're watching what's going on in Africa, and I've got a chat open right now, let's see what the offer is there. We conference call with the defense minister of blankety blankety blank. Wants me to deal with this, deal with that, deal with whatever, and of course, it's on a corporate basis. My day job is doing. It's the growth industry for so many Americans. We're military contractors, and there's a huge amount of money in showing up somewhere and hopelessly forever fighting against what? Why did the people join ISIS? Why are they there? Why are they on TV? Why were they killing people in Libya? Why were they executing Egyptians and Coptic Christians? Why were they doing it? What was the rationale? And the person you've got here, the guy with a question. And by the way, is there a question up behind this one, Stu?
I'm looking right now to see if there is, and I don't see one yet.
Wait. Is anybody out there? If you're out there, raise your left hand. Stu, count the hands.
I'm not seeing any. I know we got them out here. We've got a large audience out here.
Yeah. And and if you're like so many Americans, you don't want to vote in an election because you feel it's a waste of time. And I went out and voted. Heaven forbid I had to argue with somebody for 20 minutes to do it. Because I got a wallet full of photo ID of every imaginable kind, and they still wanted to fight with me about voting. And I'm a white person, in America. I mean, you expect in this town that if you're African American or Hispanic, they're going to try to give you a lot of trouble at the voting booth because that's what Republicans do. That's the whole nature of it. If you're afraid that somebody isn't going to vote the John Hagee ticket, you got to get him tossed out of there. There's no room for dumb, but there's also no room, and I'm telling you guys out there, do not go out and kill one another. Don't go out and threaten people. Don't alienate them, and it's hard. It's really hard. Don't alienate the people around you. Don't try to convince people. Find people who are ready and join with them. And arm yourself. 400 rounds of ammunition and a gas mask and a good sporting weapon is fine. You know, not a shotgun. That's home defense. You know, with an optic. Make sure you have that. You know, like in the movies. You know, Red Dawn. It's all for real. Have those things. You know, you'll not lose money on them anyway. You know, if they take guns, they'll be hunting you down.
Hey, I've got some questions popped up here in the chat room for you, Gordon.
Sure.
Okay. Let's see. Well, it says, Gordon, would you agree that there is an off-world interdimensional influence to the common fabric, and they're bouncing them in here now, of the over agenda of all these Luciferian groups and cults?
Yes, there is.
Okay, question, Gordon. Some theorize that the Jesuits are at the very top of this criminal activity.
No, they're not. But they're a significant part of this. I had the Jesuits come to me in 1968 to recruit me, which is, I mean, a couple of things here.
I'm going to take a call here, and if it's a stooge, I'm going to hang up on him, but I added him right here for a moment. Go ahead, Gordon. I apologize.
No, go ahead, Dick. See who this is.
Who is the caller here? You have a question?
Yes, my name is Sherry. I'm calling from Portsmouth, Virginia, and I have a question. Would you like to hear it now?
Yes, fire it up.
I know I can hear that there's a time lag on the because I had an earbud in my ear. I'm listening live.
Yes. What's the question, Sherry?
My question is, first, I'd just like to thank you all. I appreciate all that you do and the information that you bring. I find myself wondering, what about Nazi International or the post-war extra-state Nazi presence that we know exists? And, you know, where does that fit into the picture? And also, maybe you can explain, because it does seem like it gets very confusing with the Nazi Zionist Nazis. You know, I'm just, if you could clarify any of that, I would very much appreciate it.
Hold it for a moment, and let's finish the woman's question and answer right after the top of the hour here, Gordon.
All right.
And we're back, folks, for the second hour tonight of Veterans Day Radio News Reports. I'm your host, Stu Webb, and it is Monday, February the 16th, 2005. And I apologize to any one of you during that break because I can't control the microphone of those callers, and we had two of them on here. One used the word, the N-word. So here's his phone number, 503, if anybody doesn't like it, 470-9180. Don't ever do that to me again. Your phone is banned now from this network. Now,
well, let me make a policy statement here on where we stand on these things. That Veterans Today is very much equal opportunity. We are in no way there isn't a white supremacist bone in our body. We have people of every color, every belief system. I work in Africa primarily. The people I work with, my closest friends, very few of them are white. The people I respect most, I have gone into projects where there haven't been two people in the room of the same religion, with the exception that we end up with more druids than anything else. I don't know what it is. I think I attract those people. But we're the absolute opposite of this. And, of course, I'm a liberal Democrat and Obama supporter here. You know, to hell with you don't like this. Jim Dean, I see you're on board here.
Sure am.
Did you hear the questioner from last hour?
No, I didn't.
Okay, we had a young lady, obviously an attractive young lady, you know, and that's the only ones that ever call into us, as you know that, Jim. But call in and try to explain. And this is very difficult because people struggle, and I expect you to do this. What if, let's say, if aliens had tremendous influence, that there were alien civilizations that influenced what we do and worked through agents like the Rothschilds and the Bush family and whoever, you know, that they worked through the bloodline families, that they had been involved in Earth for a long time. They ran the families in Genoa and certainly the British royal family. David, is it that? Now, let's see, who is that talks about the Queen being a shape-shifting reptilian? David, is it Icus, whatever?
Is it David Icke? Icky?
Icky, is that his name? I can never get that right.
He appears on Alexis Jones-Stein's the Fox News Page Stooge show all the time.
Oh, we have so many of these sad people. But, yes, essentially, we're peeling an onion here to the extent that if I were telling you that secret societies exist to destroy your lives, to poison much of the planet, to steal money that no one will ever be able to defend, to destroy the lives of your children, destroy your nations, bring the world to eternal warfare, run our markets up and down. And then yes, well, why are they doing it? And first of all, we know they're doing it. We know that we're dealing with people who are absolutely evil. You have no question. You see the signs of what they're doing. And Jim Dean, when you just talk about the people in Kiev, these are bad people here. They're not. They're about as bad as they come. And why are they doing it? And the explanation could be, that not only do they consider themselves above the law, they consider themselves anointed by a special power. They believe that. They don't have contact with, let's say, if there are alien overlords, if there were, okay? I can't swear there are, okay? People who supposedly I should believe say there are, and they have a grand hierarchy to these things, and this is what we're all looking for, this hierarchy. Why are people doing these crazy things? Why are they destroying things? Why are they mean? Why are they bad? There are no emotional rewards for this kind of cruelty other than the feeling of basking in being evil. It's like people that, they'll drive off the road to kill a dog. We see those things. People, why you have to drive your kids to school. Why you worry about your kids when they go to the mall, making it back alive. Why we worry about all of these things, because we have people out there who by our standards are not human. And the problem politically we have worldwide is that these people, and we can say this began with World War II, if we accepted the Holocaust at face value, which many do not, that 6 million Jews were killed in gas chambers and then cooked in ovens and came out smokestacks, and the other 5 or 6 million that survived of the original 4.3 million all moved to Israel or to the U.S. Now, if we figured there were people that evil, on the other hand, if you're sitting in Germany, or if you were to talk to, let's say, Ingrid Zundel, you'll hear a version of this that's entirely different, that works on totally different premises, that say that the things that we think and say, somebody just pulled out of where they sit down, that the things we believe and are told are totally false. What we can say is this: there are secret societies. I've been told that there are non-corporeal beings. Do I believe this? I had explained to me we had a precursor to Veterans Today that started in the 1990s, early 1990s at AOL. One of the original people there was Malachi Martin, a Jesuit, Vatican Secretary of State, someone who'd been removed, excommunicated, brought back into the church, best-selling author, exorcist. And I'm not a religious guy. I'm way beyond an atheist. Way beyond that, I think, anyway. Atheism is a denial of something you believe. I'm in denial of atheism. I don't believe in that either. Atheism to me is a religion. They have a little club going. I'd never belong to a club. But Martin explained to me, Gordon, you don't believe in God, but I can tell you that Satan is very real. And Malachi Martin in 1968 wrote a book, it's in paperback, called Hostage to the Devil. It is the Vatican records on 5 exorcisms. But he claimed to me that he could prove there was evil. And, you know, I don't know what you run into in your lives out there. If you run into people or things that, if you run into divine inspiration or perfect love or things that are inspiring, and if you find those things, I mean, I can't ask any more for you to hold on to those things. If you've got anything you can have positive, absolutely hold on to. I've seen real evil. Jim and I see it every day, way too much of it. I've seen it up close. Not over and over, but I've seen it. Organic evil as such, I've seen it.
Yes, and we long to get back into the evil removal business.
Oh yeah, like Ghostbusters.
We're kind of old, but we long to get back into the business.
Yeah, who are you going to call? But
Gordon, we have go ahead.
Is there a greater or lesser power that is responsible for the horrible things that are done? And whether I believe it or not, I can assure you, Stu Webb knows people who believe it. The Bush family believes, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, Henry Kissinger believes. We've got quite a list. Edgar Bronfman believes. Alex Jones believes. They believe. And I do know people that I trust who have been to what they call demonic investitures. Certainly, Alex Jones, when he broke into the Bilderberger demonic sacrifice, what year was that he said he did that?
I don't remember the year, but you know, it's funny about that guy. He went in there, and the guy with the video camera, he got sentenced to 5 years in jail, and Alex never went to jail. Now, isn't that a good one?
Yeah, you know, some people have invitations.
There's a lot of rumors floating around right now that Alexis Jonestown is leaving the airways because his wife is getting jealous over a certain other thing that's been going on in his life. I won't say no.
Hey, that's people's personal lives, and heaven forbid, you know. And I've got one, you know, although it's not very interesting, but you know, and you're all welcome to delve in it if you want to. You know, if you've got nothing else to do.
But here we've got a bunch of questions for you yet, Gordon, and we have a caller that's been sitting on from 7.
Okay, Jim. Hey, Jim, jump in on these two because both Jim and I have had a long day today with this truce. Okay, and I know it sounds like compared to people of you out there doing real jobs, that's sitting on our tails, you know, watching intelligence reports all day that it's work, you know. I know we're not going to convince you. But we'd like to be able to.
It's work. Gordon, we've got 757. What's your question for Gordon Duff or Jim Dean? Are you there? 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's go to the next question. Here's some questions from the chat room again. Gordon, it's loaded up here. Want to know if you're going to commit to running for president. That's one.
Anybody that would commit this early is insane.
Okay, that's enough question answered. And you once commented that North Korea is not what we think. What is North Korea?
North Korea is like a Disneyland for organized crime. You can do any human experimentation there. You can use any toxic substance. You can hide anything there. North Korea, and to a lesser extent, Cuba, are an area free reign for genetic experiments, pharmaceutical companies, for people doing really, really nasty stuff. And, you know, frankly, the North Korea is a very high value resource. It's the equivalent of a giant laboratory. And to a lesser extent, Cuba is a place with cheap sex, good weather, nice beaches, And where people in the United States who die, what do they do in Cuba, Stu?
They go down there and they money launder, and they, I found out something about not only Cuba, but it's Ecuador as well, because of this, no extradition.
You can't talk about Ecuador because that's where my guys hide out at.
Okay.
But I'm not entirely kidding there. So we're going to forget you've heard Ecuador, which, by the way, is a good place to invest in with no extradition. But in Cuba is the court of miracles, where the blind see, where the dead come back to life and live. I'm sure Osama bin Laden is living in Cuba. He's probably staying in Mitt Romney's beachfront condo.
I have heard from someone high up in our government, and he has told me that the place is full of dead mob dons from all over the world, Cuba. And they're all residing right around dead Leonard Bowman. So it's getting to be comical to know these things.
And other than us saying this online, the evidence I've seen is from the FBI, and that the FBI actually keeps track of these people. The FBI goes in and out of Cuba along with Mexican intelligence, but the cartels, drug cartels over the past, how long ago did this start? When Jeb moved in with the cartels as a young man. That's the Bush family essentially manages the cartels along with the Walton family and the Mormon Church.
Now,
aided by the Romneys, the Bushes. Go ahead.
Okay, Gene Chip Tatum put a little note up here. He says, I visited the genetics center in Cuba. Really cool stuff.
I might want to go. One of my friends actually who died about 3 weeks ago in a Paris hospice, 48 years old, had a stroke. He had received genetic treatments in Ukraine. And, the joke was, you need a tooth, you go to Ukraine, they give you a shot, you grow a tooth. That's, gene therapy. They claim to be able to cure type 1 diabetes. And, I hear a lot of quackery. My wife's a nursing professor. So I get mainstream medicine around here. So I've actually considered going to these things, instead of getting a knee operation or whatever. And have been told that there are advances in medicine. And I would like to look into this. Absolutely. We should all go down there. Hey, tell Chip to arrange it for us.
I think he could do that. We were thinking about going on waterboarding one of these days. But anyway, here's another question for you. Can Mr. Duff comment on the invisibility tech that we have?
I am not working with invisibility tech, other than I am specifically aware of light bending uniforms that we do test, which work. That we have paint that certainly, like a TV set, one side's a camera and it broadcasts the picture on the other side. That works like this, yes, and that we have the capability of programming carbon-based nanoparticles that will bend light sufficiently to represent a reasonable effective invisibility, but that those particles can only be manufactured in 0G, and that building a 0G lab, and we have the plans for doing that, which, by the way, is supposed to be impossible. That would mean that gravity was actually electromagnetism, and we've had discussions about this. But I have seen the plans for building a 0G lab, and I am told that diamond semiconductors are capable of creating what we would call equivocal invisibility.
Okay, here's another question. What can you tell us about the Saturn machine moon matrix mind control, whatever that is?
I cannot answer that. You're going to have to save that for Preston James.
Okay, what do you think about the latest ammo scare over the banning of M855?
Well, being a guy here, I have, we won't even tell you how much of that stuff I've got in there, including the 77 grain stuff, which is really good. Now, the 855 is 7.62 by, or not 5.56 by 45 caliber NATO ammunition. So that doesn't cover 223. That covers the military ammo. We know that the ATF has put out a warning about this, and I would like everyone out there to organize and tell them to stick it where the sun doesn't shine, because so many of us have thousands and thousands of Lake City military brass cases that we reload and where we competitively shoot 5.56. That their rationale that this will penetrate a bulletproof vest is nothing but bull. So yes, stay on them about that. Yes, the ATF is doing it. Yes, it is not a hoax. And I too, I'm a big 5.56 shooter, including this is caused by the 5.56 pistol. And of course, VT is a manufacturer of the most advanced 5.56 pistols in the world. The response here is a direct attack on weapons that we build at VT, so we're very involved.
Okay, another question here is, Gordon, any news on the video you posted a month ago or so about a possible...
Say again your last.
It's saying something about an incoming planet, a video that you posted a month or so ago.
It'd be more than that. We have been... Let's see. Without getting into this, and it's hard to run for president if you've got a bunch of aliens working for you. I can tell you what the boys down at the Majestic Clubhouse say about these things, and I'm doing this in as joking a way as possible to make sure that an airplane doesn't fall on the roof of my house here while I'm talking. But that if you've seen the film Men in Black, and you're periodically, if you remember the film part I'm talking about, where the Tommy Lee Jones character says, we've always got a Centurion star cruiser threatening to blow up the planet out there, or a rock the size of Cleveland heading toward the planet at 80,000 miles an hour. That's pretty much the case. I have been told that we have had things diverted that would have given us a bad time, and that whatever doomsday would have been has been offset already. Can I prove that? No. I just know that we're still here. Now, question is, there is no shortage of ability people have to just continually make stuff up and do it very convincingly. Okay. This is the difficulty with disclosure, because we have many people involved in disclosure that have end-to-end explanations about everything and are entirely picking it up from listening to me or others. I try to put out any disclosure information that I can without operationally threatening anything, because I feel people have a right that you're all out here dying. Okay, me too. Probably. Although I've been promised if I'm really good, they might give me a second chance here. Not sure we want it, but that you're all dying, and the idea that somebody would withhold something to you that could offer you insight into an afterlife, or whether you're really going to see relatives again, or whether the world or life is what we say it is, or what we generally believe it is. That information, if it's withheld from you, is a betrayal. And we'll say generalized information. On the other hand, taking a small amount of provable information and me extrapolating something based on what I think other people want to hear, or will make people like me, or make people look up, the malignant narcissism thing, is worse. So, my position is, when I run out of things that I know, I shut up. When I run out of things I'm allowed to say, I shut up. When I run out of things where I think I'm being lied to. And This is a problem, you know. There are two things will happen with this. You know, I can be lied to and catch it, and I can be lied to and fooled. Still fooled or catch it later. No different than anyone else, you know. We all get had. I have, you know, as good a bullshit meter as I can possibly have, and I have the best people I have around me, and I'm not perfect, okay? But it's a question of just doing the best I can. What I do, whenever someone sends me information, I have the ability to check who they are and if they're real or not. And 1 out of 3 of the people that you guys in the audience will refer will come back as real people. 2/3 will come back as people who gather good information, are intelligent, have good insights, and then kind of make it up from there. Not evil people. But listen carefully to what I just said there. That's probably important. Because I do have communication about these things. When I get legitimate questions from folks, I actually run them out and ask for explanations. You know, I do that. And I'll continue doing it for you guys. And I can. What I can't always do is publish the answer sometimes. You ask very good questions, very intelligent questions. Sometimes the answer to those questions is no. And Jim Dean, you're going to have to take over now.
One more question, Gordon, and then
oh boy, Jim's going to hang me here.
Okay, someone's asking what is happening in the Falklands? Any news on why something is happening there?
Well, the British have been running what they consider an armed exercise there. The individuals that contacted me about the Falklands a couple of weeks ago indicated that the British were moving things there related to a highly unconventional threat, unrelated to anything we normally deal with. If we were to talk UFO disclosure stuff, I would say the Falkland Islands are ground central in some sort of that kind of issue, yeah. And, you know, very much the case. And I would like to be able to do more than this, just to let you know that every time I do this, you know, and I don't necessarily mind this case, but it does open it opens me up for attack. It opens VT up for attack. And what we've decided to do is, first of all, I can't afford to care. Because if I stop talking about these things and go into this idiotic denial here, there was never a flying saucer. There are no aliens. There are no, non-corporeal entities, all of those things like that. And we have so much evidence. There's what you guys have. You don't even want to think about what I've got available. I can't do it. I can't sit quiet and go along with things because it would be utterly, absolutely wrong. So any of you, if you don't like it, you don't like me, to hell with you. It's simply that. Don't send me all your money, please. Send it to John Hasey so I can give it to the Israelis.
Or to Alexa Jonestein so he can do whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Support the extra one he's got on staff now. Okay, here we go. Is there a wormhole near Saturn like in the movie Interstellar?
I can't say.
Fair enough.
I will tell you that the movie Interstellar is an excellent film and less fictional than you might think. And I laud the people who did it, and everyone involved in the film deserves a certain amount of thanks from us. And we're getting more of that now. The TV show Blacklist has given us a couple of outstanding episodes. We're getting more of these things in television now. And some of these things you'll find, heaven forbid, Jewish people are behind them, doing good stuff here. So let's, keep ourselves clear on these things, that we cannot afford prejudices. I don't care how much backing it's got or how many times you've been proven right. You can't afford them. You can't do it. And I'm asking you. I'm asking a lot of you. I know this, okay? And it's hard. Do the best you can, guys.
Okay. One quick statement. Gene Chip Tatum popped the statement up. Argentina has an active move to oust the president also.
Yeah, that's Netanyahu's gangsters trying to get rid of someone who is standing against organized crime.
Hey, Gordon, one quick statement for me. Can you get me an arrest warrant and deputize me for the day that when Netanyahu comes over here? I will go up and arrest him myself.
You know, I have some serious questions about exactly where I derive police powers from right now. Last time I checked, I don't think I've got any. Not in this country, anyway.
I think you could arrest a federal agent or a judge.
Oh, mostly we leave people alone, you know. Nice to see a lot more of that going on, you know.
It was nice to see the FBI quit trying to run around killing me in car crashes every 5 minutes. Thanks to
we've reached out to a lot of people here. We're bringing people together, and it's only because, but we haven't made anyone do anything they weren't ready to do anyway. But we've had to offer people something that they're willing to be part of. And to do that, we have to make ourselves deserving of that. And that's, you know, the we is either the royal we or the fact that there's an awful lot of us here right now. And I think that's more the case. But a lot is being asked of many of us, and it's being asked of more of you out there. It's not, you know, and I feel the pressure. Jim Dean, you feel the pressure, and if you want, Jim Dean, explain to people what it's like having me pressure you.
Well, like being taken to the woodshed, missing something that you should have gotten.
I'm like the bad parent of all time.
Oh yeah, it's tough. But he's usually right almost all the time.
That's a problem with Gordon. About 99.99% of the time he is right.
And he does want to make you better. He wants you to be better. So if he's covered something and passed on to you and you've kind of forgotten about it or whatever, or he thinks you should have spotted something that he knows was in front of you, he does bring it to your attention, because he said we are in the business of not letting things get by us. And, you know, and we have to accept that responsibility of keep sharpening the tools, because people call us, you know, there aren't too many places where major countries have military and defense officials call to inquire whether we can help them determine whether information they're being given is correct or not.
Oh, and Jim,
which means they're actually concerned about how secure, you know, that they may have their own infiltration problems where information is being put in front of them to try to get them to do something that's not right. And it's a heavy responsibility, you know, when you're on the short list to be able to give correct information in a situation like that.
Well, you know, we have pride in what we do because we work very hard. We've got a big team here. We operate a private intelligence agency, a corporate intelligence agency, which people may be aware of. You know, we represent Damis Defense Systems, which is a closely held company with public subsidiaries. And so that limits what I can say and do at times, because some of the companies are publicly traded. One of them is making an ungodly amount of money. That's scary in itself, because I can't pay attention to that. What's demanded of us, and this is what we've been going through even in the last couple of weeks, things have reached a nasty point here. And if you aren't seeing them, and we don't mean to scare you about it, but we're not seeing anyone else that can And others are seeing the same thing. We have a very good team here, a much bigger team than you see on DT necessarily. And we work with groups within U.S. military intelligence, other countries' military intelligence. We maintain an active dialogue with the Israelis on a regular basis. I will be on in a morning with more than one national government. I'm on with one right now here, and their people are listening to the show right now, by the way. And I'm cringing a little bit as I do this, by the way, according to the chat here. But we have a government on with us right now on Skype. And what do you do when you have a genuine threat, a perceived threat? It's false flag terrorism, it's real terrorists, whatever. But these are real people being killed, real schools, real kids, people fixing houses in the Ukraine or in Chad right now. And it's I say the word Chad, and it's, to me it's a country with people in it, and somewhere I know, or Cameroon, where Alex is now, or Nigeria. We have teams there, and Ghana and Kenya, Ivory Coast, which is me pronouncing it in English, Democratic Republic of Congo, or Gene and his teams in South Africa. We are there. We're operating in the Republic of Georgia, in Turkey, across Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Egypt, Libya. We're there. We're certainly through France, the United Kingdom, U.S., even have some people in Canada, Russia, absolutely. And everybody there's a person, everyone's someone we know. Every nation is going through not just an individual threat, many of them much worse than we are. We're sitting here with a couple 100 million assault rifles or quality hunting rifles. This is one of these things Chip was pointing out a bit ago, that the hunters of Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio are the largest army in the world, literally, and better armed and scarier, frankly, than anything all of Europe or China could put out. We could make short work of them, just the hunters alone. And we feel abused and threatened by our own government, our own country, and we are so much more powerful because we don't believe in ourselves. We have no leadership. We have no purpose, no direction. We've been led to hating ourselves, to certainly in no way believing in ourselves, that our ideas of common destiny were so twisted and distorted over 200 years of history, which when you begin to look at it, involves central banks and criminals, and has for a very long time. It isn't just since 2000 or since 1939 or 1913 with the Federal Reserve. It goes back more. The history teacher, it's gone on for a long time. You can take it back to well before the Roman Empire. There has never been human history that has been free of some kind of almost mysterious interference. It's been here all along, or we're a seriously genetically scarred organism that in no way deserves to live. Now, you pick one of the two, that we're being led over the cliff, or that we were never intended to survive in the first place. And that's largely the basis of our religions, is a way that a supreme off-planet being interferes with our natural tendency to destroy ourselves. That's much of our history, and that history is being built on a daily basis as we have religious extremism entering into our lives every day, threatening our lives every day, depending on where you are. In the U.S., it doesn't seem like such a threat because I know I can go to the closet and, pull out a night scope and a bandolier of ammunition and a damn flak jacket and call 10 or 15 people and the local police, and we could deal with it if it came down to that. If it came down to that. Through lack of continuity of leadership in the U.S., we all know that that's there. We know that no one can come here. We know that nowhere else does. That's why guns are so damned important here. I'm a liberal Democrat, and I'm a gun guy. And I'm telling you, stay armed. Don't get stupid. Stay armed and intelligent, well-informed, fair, reasonable, and stay sane. Take care of each other. And I'm letting you guys go.
Hey, thank you, Gordon Duff, Senior Editor, Veterans Today. Jim Dean.
Yes, sir.
We've got about 20 minutes, maybe 25, I think 25 until we come to the end of the hour. And I got Dr. Preston James on. I think he'll throw a question or two at you, and we'll go there. Can you cut your report down to just 20 or 25 minutes? 20 minutes?
Yeah, I'll speed it up. I'm pretty much had planned to just cover how the ceasefire is going. Of course, we are having the violations by Kiev, but they're localized, and it seemed everybody, both Kiev and the republics, did not want to make a big deal out of them because they're thinking that they're going to have them resolved in a couple of days. So nobody wanted to walk away from the ceasefire right away, and for different reasons. But there's fighting going on still in the Baltso pocket, several other cities there. There have been attacks at the airport still, which is kind of mind-boggling. But we'll have to see in the next couple of days. But so the good news is there's some areas of the lines where it's quieted down, and there's a lot of happy civilian areas that either have had no shelling at all or very light shelling. And of course, some of this we think is coming from, they've got these nationalist and right sector groups mixed in along the line, particularly Kolomovsky's brigades. He's got the Azov brigade down in Mariupol. And you've got a situation where some of them want to get some licks in before the ceasefire starts. And then you've got some that have pledged that they don't acknowledge the ceasefire and that they may be trying to take actions to wreck it, to try to get do attacks and then have the militias respond so that Kiev can then, accuse them of violating and do their standard thing that Russian troops have come over and made attacks. But what was funny, about an hour before we went on, I was checking the latest updates. And even some of the Republic's people, they're starting to pose now that they think Kiev is letting and not complaining about their counterfire on some of the areas where they're getting attacks, because that they are coming from some of these nationalist-type groups. And that they really wouldn't mind if the republics kind of surrounded them and wiped them out in the next day or two, because they're thinking of them, if there is peace, of them coming back to Kiev, none of them wanting jobs, and they're all going to be wanting to give sit on their butt jobs in the military or something like that, which I don't think the authorities in Kiev want them to do, and therefore that they'll want to maybe try to start staging another coup. So there's a lot of talk today that there's a consensus that people think that Kiev would not mind losing a lot of these right sector and hardliner nationalist guys and letting them all die on the last couple of days of the war. So a very interesting little twist there. But here's what's going on in Debaltsevo. You had the Ghost Brigade actually went into town, so they broke through. They've been making pressure all along the line, looking for open spots, and they wanted to get into town, not to go in there and kill and wipe out all of the Ukrainians, as they knew that they had had civilians in there that had been going through actually a couple of months now of having to live in their basements, and the last couple of weeks have been really bad. And the Ghost Brigade found 135 civilians inside the city that were still hunkering down. A lot of these are old people. The children have gotten out and whatever, and they've just been living in cellars, some of them for a couple of months. And I saw some very moving video of these really elderly grannies in their 70s and whatever, and their gratitude to see these basically real patriots, because the real freedom fighters in this Ukraine war are the separatists. They're not the rebels. They're called rebels, but the rebels are from Kiev because they're the folks that are representing the foreign-backed coup. They're the outsiders. They're what's called, they were the Russians that came from the West that came in and took over the country and let all the thugs loose. And Kolomoisky got over half of his troops for his brigades. He just emptied out the prisons. Basically just, he was the governor, and he just said, anybody that wants to get out of prison and fight, I'll give you a gun. And you can imagine what some of these people unleashed. So they've had these guys, and it was really tearful to see how grateful these people were. But even I saw the prime minister of Donetsk had his military uniform on, and he was actually in Donetsk. He had gone through and toured the city. He said, what's left of it? Because it's basically looks like Germany after World War II. And he was even interviewing a couple of guys that had been taken prisoner. And he was kind of explaining the strategy of what was going on. And Kiev made a huge, huge tactical blunder. At Minsk, the republics tried to bring up the subject of what are we going to do about the Debaltseve pocket. And they had anywhere estimates from 5,000 to 8,000 troops there. And Kiev's response was, there is no pocket there. We don't have any troops cut off. So that's not an issue that we have to address, because they had consistently denied that their troops were surrounded there. For what appears to be public relations things back home, I think they just felt that if people in the rest of Ukraine thought that it had another, after the airport disaster, if they'd had a whole army surrounded, that they might be overthrown. So finally, the Republic's people powwowed, and they said, okay, they're on record. They said that. We will shut up now. So what they were doing today, they said, well, you're firing on Debaltseve, and, people are saying, you're breaking the ceasefire. You're moving on Debaltseve. And they said, well, yes, we are. But he said, we've been receiving artillery fire for them all day long. In fact, I've watched videos, news videos, where people were interviewing, and they just stopped every now and then, and they said, you can hear the shelling being fired from Debaltseve. It's down the road, and they're just firing away. And they fired all last night, and they've been shooting all day. So we have to move toward those guns and take those guns out. And here's what the Prime Minister's rationale was. In the Minsk agreement, we said that we are bound to disarm or eliminate all illegally armed groups in our areas. Okay? Number one. Number two, Kiev said that there was no pocket in Debaltseve. So obviously that meant that they removed or took anybody out anywhere because they could. They just retreated to the rear. So he said, we consider the Debaltseve pocket basically our territory, and we are cleaning up, and anybody that's firing and shooting during the ceasefire is an illegally armed group. And we are in the process of disarming or eliminating it. And that's not only is that not in violation, but the agreement said that we had pledged that we would do this. We would not allow illegally armed groups to operate in our territory. So that was quite a slick move, and somebody really messed up there. And what appears to be happening in Debaltseve was that they're not capturing any officers, so it appears that they may have, a variety of pockets because it's a very large area. And again, I am just talking about the downtown, the city area. They have broken through into the town. It's rather a large area. It's, about the size of Rhode Island or something. It's not some tiny little area the size of a small town that they're fighting over. But it appears that these Ukrainian troops had just been abandoned and left there as kind of a holding position while the officers either scooted out in helicopters or broke through in small amounts. These guys didn't seem to know what was going on because under the Minsk agreement, even if they surrendered, they're all supposed to be exchanged. They've agreed to exchange all POWs in a month. So why would anybody risk dying to try to make a breakthrough through the lines when they could just surrender and they're going to be home in 30 days anyway? And the only rationale for that is they hadn't been told what the provisions of the Minsk agreement are, and that their officers had left them and they had seen that they had been abandoned and that they were just trying to break out to save themselves. And of course, the Republics guys were waiting for them. And I saw a video yesterday on one road which people had tried to, break out of, and it looked like the road to Baghdad after Gulf War I. I mean, it was just littered with burned out APCs and trucks and tanks. And it's been the usual fashion for Ukraine is they just abandon their dead. And the militia guys were actually out there with a reporter, and one of the things they were doing is they said, we usually, after things have quieted down, we come out to pick up their dead, because he said they just don't seem to want to deal with their dead. They just leave them. And of course, fortunately, dealing with corpses in the winter is not nearly as unpleasant as it is in the summer. So,
Jim, I got a question for you. Why is the Minsk agreement holding? What's the motivation there? I would have never expected that. What's going on in the background that is providing adequate motivation? Is it Kiev's losing and it's the only way they can save face?
Well, I think it might be. My sense is that on the day after it was signed, the IMF lady was there with her $17.5 billion. Okay? And what do you think the chances of that being a coincidence are? About zero?
Yes, zero. So,
right. So
you
think that Kiev must not have made to get that $17.5 billion? Of course, they just didn't hand that over to them. That's like a multi-year, in addition to what they've been done. And if there's one thing these guys in Kiev want, it's money. Because there's nothing to steal. The country's been picked so clean. The only way they can steal any more is to get more in from the West. So I think that's the strength.